Celestia is here. Thank you guys. So I'm moving on, restarting. At the end of last lesson, I solved one problem where we asked to calculate certain things, sine, cosine of angles. They're not special angles. But we're still not allowed to use the calculator. And the tools that we're going to work with are these equations that we work with. Okay, so we've got the sine and cosine compound, what we call compound formulas. Okay, and then the double angles. Okay, remember we don't have to memorize them, but we do have to remember them. What does it mean? I'm not expecting you to know them by heart, but what you do need to know is to kind of remember that. So if you come across something like this, you need to think, okay, which one am I going to use? Okay, so these things need to be in your head. Now, we've done one question like that, so I'll just remind you how we do it. You get sine 345, sine 255. Our first step, what we first want to do is take these angles which live in different quadrants and reduce them to the first quadrant. Okay, so I'm not going to write the formulas for the first quadrant, and because our time is quite short, I'm not going to ask, I'm just going to kind of tell you. So 345, we can write it as sine 360 minus 15. Okay, 225 is going to be, I guess, 180 plus, is it 75? Let me just check. Yeah, plus 75. Right? Okay, now the 50 and the 75 are in the first quadrant, so I can write down, okay, what happens, okay, I must always do that for me, even if it's not for you, I gotta add, okay, so we've got theta here, we've got 180 minus theta, here we've got theta plus or minus 180, and here we have 360 minus theta, or actually minus theta, okay. So this is in the fourth quadrant, okay, so that's going to be minus sine 15. And 180 plus, it's still minus, is going to be minus sine 75. Minus, not 1 minus. Okay? So minus times minus, I'm going to get sine 15, sine 75. Are we alright with that?
Yeah.
Okay, now everything lives in the first quadrant, and then we need to look here and see what can we use. Do we have sine something times sine something? Okay, yeah, it's not going to be one of those, because these are going to be sine, cosine, cosine, sine, or cosine, cosine plus sine, sine. So it's going to be one of those. The bottom one?
No, sine to win.
This one. It can't be that one. This is a sine square because these angles are definitely not the same. So I don't know if that's what you said, Simon. This is true. It's going to be that. The only problem is, what is the problem? It's no cos. So what? So I've got two sines here, a sine, cosine. So what do we have to think? What is it called? Cofunctions. You said that. G said that. Okay. So cofunction means that sine 90 minus alpha is going to be equal to cosine alpha. So I can always replace one of them. Let's keep the first one like that. Instead of sine 75, I can write cosine 90 minus 75, right? Which amazingly enough is 15. So I've got sine 15 times cos 15. Yeah? Now, well, that's the same as that. Okay, that shouldn't have been beta. Sorry, that should have been that shouldn't have been beta. It should have been a sine 2a, 2 sine a cosine a. So I've got sine a cosine a. So what do I do with that? We've come across these things. What I can do is, because I'm missing that 2, I can cheekily add that 2, as long as I divide by 2. Okay, and now let's leave this 2 here. 2 sine 15 cosine 15 sine
215.
In other words, can we skip sine 30? Can you see?
So
And it's one over 4.
And that's a special angle, and then Eugene, you're absolutely right, it's a half divided by 2, it's a quarter. The answer is a quarter. Okay, I'll just leave it here for you guys to think about for a second. Okay, let's do one more. So sine 154, sine 193, cosine 373. I don't know if you want to write it. I'm actually going to write it for you. Okay? To solve these problems, step 1. What is the step 1?
Put it or convert it to the first quadrant.
Convert all angles to first one. Okay? That's called reduction. We have to get all of them reduction. And now this could be like 5-6 marks. So, you know, it is difficult, and the last step is very difficult. But the reduction is something, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's quite mechanical. So if we're all careful, we should all be able to get these marks. It's only in the second step, then you have to pick a formula, I don't know, one of those formulas. Okay? Right? One of these things. Okay, so let's do it. So sine 154 is basically 180 minus 26. Okay? And sine 193, it's in the third, so it's going to be sine 180 plus 13. Cos 373. Look, I can just subtract, so it's 13. Straight away, right? I can write 360 plus 13, but you know I can take out that 360. So I did a bit in one step. Okay? Now 180 minus 26, the second quadrant, the sign is positive, so it's going to be sine 26. And then, no, not negative, because this one, yes, minus sine 13, cos 13. Okay? Now I'm just going to leave it for you here to see what you want to do next. Let's see. So, so now there's actually two ways. I can either take this and work backward, or take this and work forward. And Finn chose that, so I'll go with you. So sine 26, okay, you can see that it's 2 sine 13 cosine 13. I want to see if you're happy with that. I just use double angles. Yeah? And then luckily here I've got minus sine 13 cosine 13. So what's the answer? If somebody can do it without me. Complete, it's just simply negative 2. Okay? Flap, flap. I've got the minus. Okay? Leave it for you to think for a second or two. Okay, so there was a question. How do I go from here to there? So I'm just going to write it here. Okay? Shh, guys, please. Okay? So sine 26, let's just work on sine 26. So sine 26, I can write as sine 2 times 13. Is that alright?
Yeah.
Okay, so sine 2 times 13, just replace a with 13, is 2 sine 13 cosine 13. Okay? 2 sine 13 cosine 13, as they say, the rest is history. Okay. Let's pause here. Alright, chaps, so one last one in this category. Okay, tan minus 12 cos 348. Then I've got sine squared 2 plus sine squared 18 minus 2 sine squared 3 to 1. So we don't freak out. Okay, that's the most important thing. We don't freak out. We simply calmly and resolutely we just reduce everything to the first quadrant. So tan negative angle. What happens to tan if I go negative? It's negative, right? Because the sign is sensitive, so it's minus tan 12. Cos 348, I can write it as cos 360 minus 12. Let's first of all just write it like that. That's probably not going to be a mark, but I'm just going to go slowly. Okay, right. Sine squared plus sine squared. Do we have anything about sine squared plus sine squared? We don't. But that should remind you something that you do have, and I haven't written it. Sine squared x plus cos squared x is 1. So, okay, but I've got sine squared and sine squared. But what about these angles, 10 and 80? They add up to 90. So what I'm going to do, I'll do the first one. I'll keep that as a 10. Okay? Instead of sine 80, Okay? I'm going to write cosine 10 and I got to square it, right? You see what I've done? Let me just emphasize, okay? So I know that sine 80, let's write it down here. Sine 80 is cos what? 10. Okay. So sine square 80, that's basically sine 80, simply squared. Why is sine 80 equal to cos 10? We call these cos co-function, right? Sine 90 minus alpha is cos alpha, okay? Okay? So if sine 80 equal to cos 10, sine square 80, which basically means sine 80 squared, is cos 80 squared, right? In other words, it's cos square 80. Okay? So I couldn't replace, I'm allowed.
It's 10.
I meant 10, yes. Sorry, looking at me, I can feel your stare. Okay? It's cos square 10. So it is right to say that sine square 80 is cos square 10, right? Okay. Then I just need to drop minus 2 sine square, and let's write that as 360 minus, what is that? 39. 39, is it?
Yes.
Okay, that doesn't seem like a nice number. Okay, alright. We'll try and figure it out later. Okay, so I've got minus tan 12. Cosine from here to here remains positive, so it's cosine 12. Divided, what is sine squared plus cosine squared then?
It's 1.
It's just 1.
Ooh,
This thing is just 1. Minus 2 sine squared, and now I can write
Minus
I should really, if I'm really being careful, I should write, bracket, minus sine 39 and all of that square, like I really need to be. Okay, because sine becomes negative, but it's squared, doesn't matter actually at all. Okay, now, what do you think we should do now? Tan 12 times cosine, what should I do?
minus sine.
Good job, okay? So tan is actually minus sine 12 over cosine 12. Look at that, he's ambushing that other cos 12, yeah? So you know what's going to happen to him, poor little one. Okay? And this is 1 plus, and please don't make a mistake, we're not squaring the 2. It's just 1 plus 2 sine squared. It's minus, you're right. Thank goodness, otherwise we will be in trouble. 39. Okay?
And that's the formula.
Okay, so that should, you see, this is what I'm trying to say. First of all, let's just wait with that, so that gets annihilated, and we've got minus sine 12. Now, Jeannie is saying, look, this reminds me of the formula, and that's where I want you to be. I'm not expecting you to memorize it, but you need to remember that it's something to do with that, and it is, okay? 1 minus 2 sine squared a. What can I write? Cos what? What should I write here? Cos 2 times 39. Okay? We've got quite a lot of work to do here. We're not there. Okay? It's going to work out. Can you see if I write here? I think so. Can you see or not really? Okay? So it's going to be minus sine 12 divided by cosine 78. But there's still, what's happening now? What should we do? What's that? Co-function again. You can choose anyone. I'll keep this one as minus sine 12, and I'll be able to write that as sine what? 12, really. It's 90 minus 78. Let's do it in 2 steps. 90 minus 78. If I take this cos and insist on writing it as sine, I can do it as long as I do 90 minus 78. So that's minus sine 12 divided by sine 12. Believe it or not, we're just getting minus 1. Incredible. Okay, great. I'm going to stop here. Let's do some work on that.